This is the round 4 report, European Senior Team Championships. The first match was Wales Gwent against Germany women. Wales Gwent lost 2.5, 1.5. On board 1, David James at white, and he opened with d4, and black responded with a Slav defence. Black then allowed a light squared bishop and queen to be exchanged, and also allowed David's knight to get to b5. Black then mistakenly allowed her king's knight to be traded for white's light square bishop, allowing a pass d-pawn. Bishops were then traded, and white won a pawn in e4. White then allowed knights and pawns to be traded, being a double rook endgame with white having a passed a-pawn. Although one pair of rooks and a further pawn were traded, this left white with rook and 3 pawns against rook and 2 pawns, and white having a passed b-pawn. The kingside pawns were then traded, for white's b-pawn eventually queens, and black resigned. On board 2, John Thornton had black and played a French defence, and white responded with a Tarrasch. After John played knight f6, white played e5, and a slow manoeuvring game ensued. John managed to trade queens at the cost of a double pawn and dark square bishops, and eventually managed to free his game with e5, while white obligingly undoubled John's double pawns and traded light square bishops. White did eventually win John's d-pawn after a knight trade, with the resulting double rook ending and single rook ending after a further rook trade resulting in a draw. On board 3, Richard Miles was white, and he played a queen's gambit declined, and black replied with a triangle system. The game developed evenly with 2 minor pieces being exchanged, but black had an active light square bishop and a rook. Richard then made an error in playing h3, keeping knight out, but then lost it, pawn in h3 that is, and 2 minor pieces for a rook to a pin against his king. Richard launched a counterattack, but black's pieces were too active and eventually got mated on h1. On board 4, John Bowers was black, and he played a Schliemann variation against the Spanish. White traded a queen's knight for John's dark square bishop, and the game seemed to be progressing smoothly, till white managed to infiltrate a rook to the 8th rank. This resulted in John getting his rook trapped on b5, despite valiant efforts to free the rook, was lost and John resigned. In the other match, Wales David beat Freibauer Niedersachsen by 3-1. Iola Jones on 1 was white, and he faced a Benoni without committing himself to putting a pawn on c4. Black swapped light squared bishops to free his game, followed by e6 and exchanging pawns on d5. Iola then played the usual knight to c4 maneuver, and after black put a knight in e5, Iola swapped it for his knight on c4, forcing Iola's d-pawn to become passed. Iola then exchanged his dark square bishop for black's other knight, and put his remaining knight on e4, dominating the bishop. He then fixed black's a-pawn in a6, and switched his knight from e4 to c4 via d6. He then started pushing his passed d-pawn. When the pawn reached the 7th rank, he quickly won 2 pawns, and black resigned. On board 3, I was white, and I played in English, but black achieved easy equality. I tried to spice things up by threatening a central pawn advance, but this was nipped in the bud by a black bishop for knight trade. A further trade of black's knight from my light square bishop resulted in black controlling the d-file and offered a draw to threaten to exchange queens, which I accepted. On board 4, Colin Gilbert was black, and he faced a Trompowsky, but white blundered a pawn in move 8 inexplicably. The resulting position resembled a French defence. After black exchanged queens and a pair of rooks, black agreed to draw when he should have played on. The game of the day is Wales David board 2 match between Patrick Bennett and Werner Helweg. Patrick was black. The game went as follows. White opened with d4. There's a Queen's Gambit accepted, which it's a Catalan actually, which Patrick decided to take on c4. White initially tried to go after the pawn, but allowed black to retain it. This pawn on c5 is now isolated, and it will need defending. And this is what White had to do. Patrick swapped the rook off an a file, but he's got control of the d file. Comes in with his rook to d3, attacking the queen. Makes an escape square for his king just in case of the back ranker. Just when White thought he was getting some of the rook a7, he walks into a piece sacrifice, taking knight g4. Queen's got to move off the diagonal, g1 to h7, a7. Patrick's queen snuggled the pawn up on c5, giving check. And then the knight as well to check in order to get the queens off. He's got a rook and queen's two pieces, but he's got 3 pawns with it. And these are massive queenside pawns on the queen side. He's also retreated into the heart of White's defense. And then White walks into a lulu of a of a trap. The check forces White to see king to c4, and then rook c2 wins a piece. So White had to resign. So a good result for Wheels David. Their first victory. This is the round 4 report concluded.